TKO Boxing with Sherry Abbasi, and today I have a very special guest, the new WBO president, Mr. Gustavo Olivieri. Gustavo, as I was saying a second ago, thank you so much for giving me a bit of your time today. How are you doing yourself?
How are you, Sherry? It's a pleasure to be on your show. Thanks for having me. Feeling good. I was just a little bit down for the count with the flu the past couple of days, so just getting back on track, feeling much better, but ready to go.
Thank you. Amazing, Gustavo. I wish you the best of health moving forward as well.
Thank you.
I'm sure the last few months may have been a bit of a whirlwind for you with the new role and stepping up into the role of president. Obviously, for boxing fans, the WBO has been around for a long time now, but it's always been associated with Mr. Paco Valcarcel being the face of the thing. And obviously,
Sure.
sort of stepping away now and you stepping into the role as the president. The first question I sort of have for you is, how did you get involved in boxing? I know your background wasn't necessarily a boxing background. How did you find yourself in this position and ending up as a president of a sanctioning body?
But it's a crazy story because the way I got inside the WBO was through an internship program. I was pursuing graduate studies related with sports, law, entertainment, those topics, and as a condition for graduation, you had to fulfill an internship through a course called internship practicum course, whereby you would have to all the theoretical aspects of your degree, you would have to put them in practice through an internship. And there's a lady at that time, she's still here, called Doris Companies. I was calling her every day on the phone and through email, asking for an opportunity, and she basically she served as a liaison with Paco, my mentor and an extended family member, to at least hear me out. And after many months of pushing for an opportunity, because there were no vacancies at the time at the WBO, I simply just called and introduced myself. Hey, my name is Gustavo Olivieri. I'm a licensed attorney. Pursuing graduate studies in Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. I have to do this internship, blah, blah, blah. I basically explained the purpose of my call. And the lady was very kind. She said, send an email with your CV, right, your resume, and we'll refer to the office of the president and give it its proper course. So I basically follow up, called again, email, but Paco was always traveling the world. He was never at the office. So after a couple of months that I was pushing and calling and emailing, I was already set to continue my professional career as a licensed attorney, as a trial lawyer. And after settling in with everything as to my profession and most probably moving back to the States with my girlfriend at the time, I got a call like on a Monday or something like that. In the morning, hey, Gustavo, Mr. Attorney Olivieri, how are you? This is the WBO office. Are you available for an interview tomorrow? And I remember I had my beard huge, no suit, no tie. I needed a haircut. And I'm from the west side of the island, which on Mondays, you can't find a barbershop open. So I had to call a friend to get a haircut at home. Got to iron the shirt, the suit, all suit up, clean cut. And then I said yes. I said, yeah, I'm available tomorrow. So I had to travel like almost 3 hours from my hometown to the WBO office to be here for an interview. And Paco interviewed me, and he basically asked me 2 or 3 questions unrelated with boxing. And then he asked me about I remember he asked me about how much money I was needed to be paid. Right? I said, no. This is a school program. I'm prohibited from taking any type of compensation. I just want an opportunity. No, but you're a licensed attorney. You should get paid. No, sir. I just want a chance. So he didn't say yes nor no at the time. He just said, I got a few things to check. I'll let you know. But in Puerto Rico, when you tell somebody, I'll let you know, most likely than not, it's not happening. So I I gave him my hand. We shook hands, saying thank you for the opportunity, your time. And I went back home, and I just after 3, 4, I think between 3 to 5 weeks thereafter, I kept pushing and calling the lady again, the stores, and she said, "You know what, kid? I don't know what to tell you. Just call him directly." And she gave me
Oh,
his
wow.
phone. I called him. He answered the phone. He said, "I'm in a meeting. Can you call me later?" I called him later. "I'm in a meeting. I'll call you back." And he did call back. And he said, "How much I have to pay you, kid?" I said, "No, I won't. I can't." "No, but you're already an attorney. You got some years of experience." "No, sir. I just want, excuse me, I just want a chance." And he said, "When can you start?" "I can start tomorrow. Come on Monday." And he gave me a chance. I had to do 80 hours a month. I tripled the hours. I
Wow.
came during 6 months. I traveled from my hometown to San Juan, back and forth, almost 3 hours in the morning, almost 3 hours in the night, from Monday to Friday. So I tripled the hours to demonstrate to him and my coworkers that I went all in, like when you play blackjack, all in the chips and else, and with the opportunity. And basically, I learned everything from most simple stuff, archives, answering an email, picking up the phone, picking up a promoter or a fighter at the airport, putting up banners and activities, literally everything, man. I had no shame. I said, although I am a licensed attorney practitioner as well with a certain amount of years, I said I'm not afraid of putting the work and learning everything. And eventually those obligate those obligations, duties, and responsibilities were in crescendo. Delegating, Paco was delegating more and more and more, up until the last, I think, 2 years that I was basically internally here from the main office. I was running the day-to-day operations. Obviously, the big decisions were in consultation with him. "Paco, we have this. How do you want to proceed?" "Okay, let's proceed this way." And certainly there were some promoters like Frank Warren, Bob Arum, because of the standing and the long standing relationship they had with Paco, they would reach out directly to him. But at the time, I had conversations with Eddie Hearn, Carl Moretti from Top Rank, Tom Brown from Heyman, Luisito de Cubas from Heyman as well, Eric Gomez from Golden Boy, the key players, Honda-san from Japan through Tutico Zavala, his go-to guy. And that eventually went in crescendo and until now, which I think the last year or so, Paco had mentioned that he wanted to, just enjoy more his family, golf, travel less, enjoy his grandkids. And he had mentioned, but I was a little bit skeptical because remember, almost 30 years uh, running the WBO, it's not easy to just say, "You know what, I'm taking a step back and supporting a new generation." And I don't have a boxing background. So basically, I was just a casual fan. And then that turned into a hardcore fan in college. But I didn't know the inner workings of a sanctioning body, the industry, how the promoters work, the fighters, the contracts, the commissions, the officials, the scoring system, the rules and regulations, the multiple sanctioning bodies, how the industry as a whole worked upon entering the WBO. So, and you always learn, man. Every day there's a new scenario that I haven't seen, and I have to consult with him. "Hey, Paco," I talked to him earlier today. "Hey, boss." I always tell him boss, as a matter of deference and respect. And I say, "Hey, Paco, I got this situation. How should I maneuver it?" And I think the best analogy, I say that he's like this baseball player that knows what type of pitch is coming because of his experience, right? And you can't buy experience. You just have to live and learn, right? And it's been a blessing that he's by my side still as a senior advisor, and I can always reach out to him. And we talk every day, and we meet on a constant basis. and we go check, hey, this is happening in this division. These are possible scenarios that may arise. How should I deal with it? I got this call from this promoter. He's requesting, and he shed some light on some areas that I have less experience, but certainly having him as a sidekick, it's a huge plus.
Thank you so much for that answer. That was very detailed, and I'm sure a lot of people appreciate knowing your background and your story. So thank you very much for that. On the
Sure.
topic of obviously your new position, Gustavo, it's a massive position you should be taking. And obviously, with all due respect to yourself and the other sanctioning bodies, you look like you're the youngest by quite a bit. So
I am.
how did someone of your age end up getting this position over maybe other people, for example? What is the working of deciding who the next president is, for example?
There's no particular format or dynamic or method on selecting this specific individual or member or candidate. I think Paco saw in me, first, I was academically and professionally well prepared, right? I have a bachelor's degree, I have a master's degree, I have a law degree, and I have another master's in law, sports, entertainment, etc. Also, trial experience. Paco is a licensed attorney. He was also a trial lawyer. Lawyers have a broad perspective of how to deal with complexities, and boxing has, I would say, it's a world of complexities, particularly related with legal implications, because so much conflict of interest bang heads. So as a lawyer, you have a broader picture of how to maneuver things, right? And remember, we operate per our rules. If you don't have a rule structure and don't know how to properly enforce those rules, you have what? Anarchy. So Paco saw that I was a young guy, hard worker, fast learner, fully bilingual in the two predominant languages in boxing, English and Spanish. I had no commitments of being married, kids, so I was able to travel. I am able to travel. I had a great relationship with everyone. I put in the work in. I was working internally in the WBO, so I had all access to every type of information at all times, 24/7. I had good rapport with the promoters. It's very important. Great relationship. And also, I think through the respect that my colleagues granted upon my execution, they saw in me, this guy has, he has what it needs to take this sanctioning body at least to the next level. From a young guy, you need a young guy. Paco was 76. I'm 41. There's a generational change. I think it was a combination of, I was lucky at the right time, at the correct moment, and I just got an opportunity. They gave me the ball. I ran with it. And it was, I think all those factors came into play, and also my academic and professional credentials, and all those things came into play, and I got the full backing of the committee and of the members. It was obviously he endorsed my candidacy. That's the truth. But there were behind the scenes movements of many people. Hey, this kid, because Paco obviously as a savvy individual with many years of experience, lawyer, former politician. I'm sure he touched base with some of our members. What do you think of this kid? Because most of our members are, adults, plus 60 years of age. So there's been a generational transition, slowly but firmly. And Paco said, I'm not going anywhere. I'm just going to take a step back and support Gustavo so he can take the reins, and I'll be there if he needs me. And I'll guide him as well, because it's a progressive and day-to-day process. It's not, the position takes A lot of what? Let me see. What's the correct wording? I would say the position requires knowledge, commitment, um, um, relationships, honesty, responsibility, integrity, transparency, and having all those, I think, all those attributes, and also the legal thing. Paco always wanted. He always expressed that he would he would like that his next successor would be an attorney, because attorneys have a plus. I'm the only attorney from the group. It gives you a different eyes when you got scenarios before you to resolve. At least that's my point of view. You know.
Of course. Thank you for that. In terms of now yourself in the role as president, what would you say so far, since you've been doing it for a little while now, what has been the biggest sort of surprise or shock to you in that position now?
Not shock, but I would say the most tough or the most challenging thing as a president, is to say no to your friends. When you have I have promoters and managers that are, very close, and they call you, hey, what's up, my brother? I got this fighter, I need him. I have to say, I'm sorry, my man. He doesn't, I gotta play by the rules. I think that's been the most challenging part. And also the pressure, because I'm substituting the oldest guy from the gang. Paco
Yeah.
was the oldest one. I'm the youngest one now. His experience, his leadership, what he has done, he gave the WBO credibility, legitimacy. So filling those shoes is a huge burden on my shoulders. Um, and I'm going to try to implement, follow through those things that he had implemented, because there's a saying, if it ain't broke, why fix it, right? And also try to make some twitches here and there with the new blood, and bring technology, more more transparency to how a sanctioning body operates, publishing our rulings, making them fully public, every decision making, creating initiatives or policies that impact directly the fighters, maybe financial literacy, medical coverage, a post retirement pension program, if possible, helping fighters with maybe covering some fees for their first housing closure fees when they're buying their first properties, helping fighters understand how to use social media properly to how to promote themselves so they can obtain other sources of income independently from boxing. Also, smaller promoters, how to use these social media platforms, which is the new marketing tools, because of the digital age, to maybe help their brand awareness. Because fighters, for example, if they don't fight, they don't get paid. But some fighters may have some attributes outside the ring that could help them become a podcaster, a TV analyst in a boxing show, color commentator, a motivational speaker. Who knows? And they can learn how to generate or other sources of income, or um, brand awareness, because fighters today are their own brand. At least that's my perspective. So I think a combination of pushing forward those initiatives and policies that the WBO has had for many years that have been successful, but giving them some twitch here and there, and also bringing a new perspective of through the young blood, new ideas, a little refresher. I think combination of both, it's a win-win.
Yeah, I think, what you just said there about moving with the times per se.
Yeah.
Maybe 10, 12 years ago, we saw Eddie Hearn enter the game, and he had a very much a social media mindset. Okay, this is the next big thing, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. And he was very much interviewed with everyone on YouTube, because he knows that people watch them at home. And that also builds a brand more so than just going on Sky Sports and doing a mainstream interview. And
Correct.
what you said there, sort of, that ties in with that, doesn't it? And you're going to be essentially that guy now in the promotional world. The WBO has been around for a long time now, but it's the youngest of the big four.
That is correct. That is
sanctioning
correct. And I'm doing the same thing. Everyone that asks me for an interview, regardless if he's well known TV, I say yes. I have to expose my personality, my vision, etc. And as head of the WBO.
Absolutely, and I think that is the best way to do it. So hats off to you for having that sort of foresight and looking to be available to everyone. And I think a lot of people will be thankful for that, and the WBO will definitely benefit from that as well in the new era, like you said.
Absolutely.
As I mentioned, the WBO obviously is the youngest of the big four sanctioning bodies, as we call them now. But you've had some all-time great champions: Terence Crawford, Naoya Inoue, Joe Calzaghe, Manny Pacquiao. In particular, I'd say Joe Calzaghe and Pacquiao are two fighters who really brought the WBO to the forefront in terms of as a serious belt, where some people would say it wasn't included in the other three, and now it's a top belt. Obviously, for yourself, as someone, as we've already said, who's trying to push it forward into the new era with new ideas, what would you say is the one thing about the WBO in comparison to the other big three sanctioning bodies that makes it stand out, or has a different quality, for example? What would you say that one thing is for you?
I think our champions, if you check our champions, I think they're, the money makers, how we say in the industry, respected, credibility, legitimacy, the best fighters. I think Crawford is the best example. Crawford has been a WBO champion since, I think he defeated Ricky Burns, 135, and
12 years,
and then 147. And when he defeated Errol Spence to solidify himself as the king of 147, that would say, well, the WBO champion is better than the other champions, right?
Yeah.
Just mentioning Crawford as an example. I think the WBO stands out also as well. If with all due respect to my brother colleagues from the other sanctioning bodies, which all of them have their own respective attributes as well. To be fair, I think the way we operate, man. I'm not saying they don't operate that way, but I think that we are more proactive in transparency, publishing our rulings, expressing our opinion as to how do we reach that type of resolution in a matter. Like, for example, if you ask me now, what was the reasoning or the rationale behind this decision, I would be open to questions, whether we agree or disagree. And if you need to criticize, you criticize, because that's the responsibility of the media and the general public. Also, the way we enforce our rules, we're consistent in that regard. If we make a ruling, we honor that ruling. Sure, there are exceptions to the norm, but that's standard as to the WBO. And I think that we're a little bit outliers in that regard, from the other sanctioning bodies.
Yeah, I think that's a completely fair comment, Gustavo. And I think, as a boxing fan, someone who's been involved in the media for a while, of course, the general public who maybe are casual fans, they can find sanctioning bodies confusing because why are there four belts? Who's the champion? How can there be three champions in one weight class? Which I think, as two people who watch boxing and are involved in the sport, we can say, okay, yeah, to a casual person, that can be a bit confusing, but we understand, the internal sort of politics, how we say, and things like that. It's quite complicated. But now, for example, like you said about you're open to taking any sort of criticism or speaking about reasoning and rationale. For example, the other day, again, which is a credit to you that you're quite active on social media. So you've been tweeting from your own personal account about things and giving reasoning. Teofimo Lopez versus Richardson Hitchens. You said you've got 180 days from February 15th to fight the winner of Jack Catterall versus Arnold Barboza Jr. to then the interim championship then becomes, not a thing by that point. We have one champion rather than an interim and another champion. Yeah. On the topic of that, obviously Teofimo hasn't fought since last June. Is that simply because of a lack of activity from the champion of the WBO? Was that why we're trying to put a time on it?
There are multiple circumstances that come into play regarding Teofimo. Teofimo, when he defeated Josh Taylor to win the 140-pound WBO title, Top Rank solicited that he be designated as super champion. Super champion is not a title. It's a distinction whereby a fighter who complies or meets certain criteria is conferred certain privileges and rights. One of the privileges or rights depends on the scenario. One of the rights is that he, instead of discharging a mandatory within every 9 months, he has up to 18 months to fulfill a mandatory. That's a right. A privilege would be if Teofimo wanted to be the mandatory automatically for Brian Norman at 147, he would request, I want to be the mandatory for 140 to 147. Well, per your privileges as super champion, we can grant that request. So Teofimo, his last fight, so his mandatory is due. He was inactive because apparently him and Top Rank have not been able to agree on terms pertaining to the opponent and the purses, right? Those are matters that I don't get involved with, right? That's something that is between the promoter and the fighter. However, the WBO has to adhere and abide and enforce its rules. If not, we can't operate, and I would be doing a disservice to the other fighters. So what the WBO did was, first, in light of Teofimo's uncertainty, because he was offered a fight against Matias, he rejected the offer, and without knowing what's going to happen, Catterall and Barbosa, the number 1, number 2 rated world contenders, instead of being a fight for the elimination, we elevated that fight to the interim because I think it was warranted under those conditions. The top 2 world-rated fighters, both of them had convincing arguments to be designated mandatory. I think in order to avoid ordering mandatory just because ordering it, which makes no sense, I want to be a president that the mandatory challenger be really a guy with credibility, legitimacy, known to the public, to the networks, and beneficial to the fighter, to the champion. You see, it's because all the business aspect is intimately related to these decisions as well, right? Because if I have a champion like Teo or Teofimo, Inoue, Canelo, Amanda Serrano, I can't just force them to fight a nobody. That's not good neither for them nor for the sport, the fans, the promoter, the network, or for the WBO. I would be shooting myself in the foot. So we sanctioned that fight for the interim, Catterall and Barbosa, with specific conditions whereby the winner would have to face Teo within 180 days to terminate the interim champion and only have one champion, because we have a policy, only one champion. And we do interim championships under exceptional circumstances. And you would say, oh, would that be considered an exceptional circumstance? And maybe so, because I don't want to take a title from a champion through a legal document, right? If a champion loses the title, it has to be inside the ring.
Yeah.
Unless it gets to a point whereby the champion is so inactive that I have to simply, through a legal resolution, strip him of it. I don't want to do that. That will be my last resort, right? But that's not my main priority. So what we did was, Teo, you got your mandatory due. These guys are going to fight in February. Thereafter, you need to fight him, the winner, no later than August of this year. Sure, the Teofimo Hitchens unification topic may come into play, and when that time comes, the parties will file the letter to the WBO. That letter is referred to the championship committee, which is composed of 4 members. They would convene and they would consider the pros and cons of that request and the balance of interest involved. The mandatory, the unification, what best serves the interest of boxing, the fans, the public, what does the media wants to, the general public, the industry wants to see, all the stakeholders. And the committee would then render a ruling. I cannot guarantee a ruling because that would be irresponsible on my behalf. I can certainly tell you and confirm that if the unification comes into play and is submitted for consideration, the WBO will give it its due course of consideration like any other request.
Okay, that's fair. Because, again, the specific timeline, like you said, 5 months is a long time, so it's a fair amount of time. Sorry, is it 6 months? Pardon me, 6 months. So that's half a year, so that's a long time. to allow for that to happen. So potentially we could see Teofimo unify and then face the winner. It's potential, isn't it? It's about something that could happen. In the sort of on the topic of interim titles and champions, I remember in 2023 before Jamel Charlo moved up to fight Canelo Alvarez.
Yeah.
I think I read online again. I don't know if it was Mr. Paco who put it out or the WBO directly, but they said that the minute he enters the ring, he'll be stripped of his 154 WBO.
Correct.
I saw something similar about Joseph Parker, even though he's interim champion, that the minute he enters the ring, he'll be stripped of that title against Daniel Dubois. Because obviously, you can't be a unified IBF and interim WBO.
Yes, correct.
That's essentially what it is it not?
That is correct. We have a policy that we don't unify a interim champion with a full champion because it would be ludicrous, right? Madness. We agree with Joseph Parker and his team in Queensberry Promotions as a matter of respect to Parker and deference to him because he's an absolute gentleman inside the ring and outside the ring, a true pro, great individual. He embodies what we aspire to have as champions of the WBO, right? Inside and outside the ring. We explained to his team that we have a policy and we wish him nothing but the best. And it would be a terrific fight against Daniel Dubois for the IBF, which is another sanctioning body colleague. Daryl Peoples is my friend and also like a mentor. But we advise him, champ, you may enter the ring as WBO interim heavyweight champion, be announced as such. But once the bell rings, signifying the commencement of the fight, the title is vacant automatically. And they agreed to those terms. That's not a problem.
Okay. And just to sort of, I could be wrong here, so please forgive me if I get this wrong. We've said that about Joseph Parker, that you can't obviously unify a full world title and an interim title. Terence Crawford won the WBA title, and then he also won was it WBO interim when he fought Madrimov? Am I wrong or right in saying that?
Yes. Let me explain the Crawford thing because some people on social media were questioning whether the WBO had acted differently because it was Crawford. No.
That's why, yeah, there you go.
No. Crawford was authorized to fight for the interim title because Fundora was injured and suspended by the Nevada State Athletic Commission after fighting Tim Zhu.
Yeah.
So he was not available to fight because he was injured and suspended. And the commissions have something called reciprocity, where the suspension in one jurisdiction is enforced in the other as a matter of respect within the commissions and to have uniformity. That's the standard practice. So when they announced Madrimov against Crawford requested that he be allowed to vie for the WBO title. So he did not unify. He was not a champion unifying against another champion. He fought for a vacant title. It's a different distinction. So we're not unifying an interim with a WBA champion. No. It was the vacant title. It's not the same.
That's fine. Yeah,
not the same. I'm being a lawyer here. It's not the same.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not. You're right. But this is what I mean. This is why it's brilliant to hear that from you, because people online would not have made that distinction had you not explained that the way you just have. I understood it, but people online would have come out with all sorts of different things and theories and reasoning.
And we authorized that fight with certain conditions. Immediately thereafter, we forced a mandatory against Fundora. But the parties agreed on allowing Crawford to pursue the Canelo fight, permit Fundora to do a voluntary, and thereafter we'll reconvene to determine what's next for the mandatory. If it's Crawford or it's another guy. Let's see.
It keeps the division moving on nicely. Thank you for that.
Right.
Appreciate that. So the last two questions I have for you, Gustavo, are more to do with maybe the heavyweight division and then also a bit more just about the WBO. Alexander Usyk was undisputed champion last year. Of course, IBF then stripped him because he wasn't able to defend against Daniel Dubois.
Yeah.
He's now unified champion for WBO, WBC, and WBA.
Yep.
What is the process with the WBO moving forward now, for example, because he's got those 3 titles. We don't actually know at the moment what his next step is going to be. He's only just had a fight. How long do you wait before you look at the rankings and say, okay, we need to make a decision about an interim champion or how to move the division forward? What are the steps at heavyweight that you're taking next?
Great question. Remember, when you have a champion, that holds the title of at least two or more of the sanctioning bodies, there are agreements between the organizations, because there's a precedent called the rotation system, which is a legally it was established through a legal proceeding by a renowned boxing attorney.
Is that the mandatory cycles one at a time?
It's called the rotation system.
Yeah.
Because a champion cannot defend two titles at the same time against two different individuals at the same time. So through a legal proceeding, that precedent was set, a rotation system whereby the oldest mandatory is discharged first in the rotation system. So right now, in the rotation system of Usyk, the last mandatory that he fulfilled was the WBA mandatory against Dubois.
Yeah.
Then he fought Fury, which was a unification of the WBC and the rematch. Excuse me. Now the organizations, the presidents, and myself, we're going to meet soon and discuss the order of who's going to call their next mandatory. I have to check because the BA has been discharged. The WBC doesn't have a mandatory. The IBF, I don't think the IBF doesn't have a mandatory.
Yeah.
So most probably it's the WBO's turn. But Usyk is also a super champion. So Usyk has significant time to discharge a mandatory, and the WBO will take the proper steps to determine who will be the definitive and legitimate mandatory challenger when that time comes. And we will publish our ruling. Like you've seen me, I tweet all the time.
Yeah, exactly. You're active, so that's good. So we can get the answers very quickly. Just a quick add-on to what you just said there. The last WBO mandatory himself was Alexander Usyk, wasn't it, in 2021 September?
That is correct.
So we're going on three and a half years since the last mandatory. So really, you should be next.
But I have to check on the file of Usyk, because remember, a unification as well could be sanctioned as a mandatory as well.
Yeah.
So that most probably happened at some point during the unifications, that the WBO sanctioned one of those I have to check, to be honest with you. I don't recall. I work with those files. I don't recall. But certainly now, if there's a mandatory, it's got to be the WBO mandatory next.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. And the last question I have is, again, back to yourself and about what you want to do moving forward now that you're in this position. Can I ask, if you don't mind, what would be maybe 3 goals you would set yourself as a new next generation president, a younger president, if you will, with all due respect to the other presidents, for how you want the WBO to move forward into the next generation, not just with fighters, with fans, the general public, and also what your end goal would be and how you would like to be remembered once your time as president comes to an end, however long that is.
I'm just
a loaded question. I apologize.
I'm just starting, and you want me to tell you like how I want my legacy to.
Ideally.
Yeah. The first question is, I would like to implement technology. Certainly, right? That's a no-brainer. Excuse me. Initiatives or policies that impact directly the fighters. We can't just be fight for a title. Minor title, you get ranked, then you fight for a world championship. We give you the belt. We recognize you with a belt ceremony. We help you out with your gym. All those things, that's cool, right? But we need to do more directly to the fighter. You see, for example, this is just brainstorming. Let's say I have. Not all fighters will earn purses like Crawford, Amanda, Inoue, Canelo, etc. Usyk. There are second-tier fighters that maybe a regional title is their maximum accomplishment. And let's say you have a regional champion that has fought 3, 4, 5 times the regional title, and he's paid some sanctioning fees. We can try to implement a type of program of a payback. That those monies that have been deducted from your purse for purpose of sanctioning fees, I'm gonna give them to you back, but we're gonna place that in an investment fund here, or at least for 3 years, so it can generate interest. And after you finish, or at certain time, you can request the disbursement of those monies, and you can use them in whatever thing you want, right? Financial literacy, educate the fighters and the fans, right? Some fighters don't know that they are independent contractors, that they have to pay their own social security, at least in America, right? Pay taxes. What's a checkings account? What's a savings account? What is an investment? What is real estate? Also, inform the fans about the business beyond the public rulings and the transparency. Having like a boxing 101 course for dummies through social media. How do you score a fight? What's the scoring system? What's the scoring zone? How do you appoint the officials? How does the mandatory work? How do you classify a fighter? What was the logic behind this decision? All technology, informative, impact directly to the fighters, artificial intelligence as well. I think those are the most important immediate things that I want to do as well. And as to my legacy, which is, I think it's not my legacy, it's the WBO's legacy, right? This is a team effort. It's the teamwork makes the dream work. I have many people here that have helped me in my development, and still to this day, every day helping out, supporting, collaborating, etc. So it's a teamwork. Many people around the world, but at least from my perspective, that people respect me for being honest, transparent, integrity, and consistent with my positions and doing things correctly by the book. You have rules. We adapt, certainly rules need to be adapted. It's like the law changes through times, but we need to play by the rule. And if we play by the rule, we won't have any problems.
Excellent. Thank you, Gustavo. I just want to say a massive thank you for the time you've given me today. And I think it's amazing to hear in depth from someone different, for example, not just a fighter, a manager, a promoter, someone who's involved at the highest level of sports, but maybe doesn't get a chance to talk to the general public a lot and give insight on things that we don't really get to hear about day to day. These are all very important things and important topics. So I just want to say a massive thank you for that. And can you just give me your social media handles for anyone who's watching this who can then follow you on social media?
Yeah, everyone can find me on Twitter, which is where I post my boxing stuff. It's my last name, Olivieri Law, at Olivieri Law.
That's fine. And I'll be sure to tag that in the YouTube and Twitter and Instagram when I put it out as well. Thank you so much for your time, Gustavo. And hopefully some point throughout the year, I'd love to have another catch up with you just to see how the progress is going with the WBO as well. That'd be amazing.
It's my pleasure, my man. When I visit London or something, we'll grab a beer or something, okay?
Yeah, text me and shout me, bro. That's fine. Thank you.
Okay, my man. It's a pleasure.